To Congressman Brad Schneider of Illinois.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to thank you for calling this meeting. I want to thank the witnesses for being here. It's good to see you guys, as always. Maybe I'll start with Dr. Pollack. When did the U.S. designate Hezbollah and Hamas as terrorist organizations? Do you remember?
I cannot answer that. I am sorry, Congressman.
I can't. I looked it up, but it was October 8th, 1997. Was the U.S. right to designate Hezbollah and Hamas as terrorist organizations?
Absolutely.
Anyone want to disagree with that? Was the U.S. right to designate the Houthis as a terrorist organization? Dr. Pollack.
Yes, I would say they would. They certainly meet the definition.
Yeah. I think where we find ourselves, I'm going to just tell my wife I can't take her call right now, where we find ourselves, we face an immediate crisis with global implications. The Houthis are threatening global trade. They are citing excuses, but I think, as you guys noted, that they are achieving their own goals, covering up their inability to govern. And we need to address that crisis with great urgency. But there's also a longer-term crisis that has more local implications, regional implications, which is the crisis facing Yemen and the governance of Yemen, creating one of the largest, if not the largest, humanitarian crisis in the world. And the victims of this are the people of Yemen. And you know, the Houthis have their own agenda, but it is certainly not to lift up the people of Yemen. I mentioned Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis. Is there a common thread to those three organizations, Dr. Pollack?
Well, let's see. They all start with H in English.
That's not what I had in mind, and you know that.
They are all backed by Iran.
Right.
They are all anti-American groups. They are all anti-Israel groups. They all employ violence against civilians to achieve their ends.
Yep. And I'm going to quote from your prepared comments, but Iran is our enemy not because we want them to be, but because the government of Iran wants us to be. Can the same be true of the Houthis?
Absolutely. I think, as you know well, their slogan is, God is great, death to America, death to Israel, curse the Jews, victory to Islam.
Right. And in fact, as they cheer that and chant that cheer, they're saluting. And their salute is not the typical salute we think of, but it's the Nazi salutes. The Houthis are anti-American, anti-Israel, and anti-Semitic. And they are a threat, as I mentioned, to the region, but also a threat to the people of Yemen. Dr. Alterman, you know, one of the things we have to do is not just interdict Iran from supporting the Houthis, but find a way to end that support. Any suggestions on what we can do in Congress to try to address that and change that support?
I think partly it's important to recall that the Houthis aren't really strategic for the Iranians. The Houthis are a little bit of a freebie. The Houthis only cost the Iranians maybe about $100 million a year, which is about twice what it costs to run a think tank in Washington. But very impactful, as you've said. And I think we have to persuade the Iranians that the Houthis aren't worth it, and I worry that instead we're persuading the Iranians the Houthis are totally worth it because we're getting wrapped around the axle and talking about a whole regional program. And I'm saying that they are a regional threat, as you say, but I think we have to right-size the nature of the Houthi threat. I think degrading their military capabilities is the right thing, but getting into a war of wills over the Houthis, I worry, is going to leave them victorious and looking strong and us looking weak.
And I'm running out of time, and I forget which of you said it, but you used the term coercion. And Dr. Pollack, coercion is convincing, whether it's the Houthis or the Iranians, that the cost of the actions they're taking are far greater, or are far less. No, the benefits of the actions they're taking are far less than the costs. And we have to work to ratchet up the consequences and the costs for both the Houthis and the Iranians to change their course, because we can't allow the Houthis to disrupt global trade and that is an interest not just for the United States, but for all of our allies. And we can't allow what's happening today to end hope for the people of Yemen who are suffering and deserve the right to govern themselves. I'm over my time. With that, I yield back.
Thank you very much, Congressman Brad Schneider. We now proceed to Congress.